All right, peace team, what's going on? Welcome back to our boot camp. In the last tutorial, I believe we went through hold on, let me go back to this screen. I believe we went over in detail, essentially, basically how all the components are going to work together. Right now, we're going to get into some actual data mapping. Now, I'm going to tell you this right now. If you are in a data analyst role or a DBA type of role, this is where you're going to spend 90% of your time. 90% of your time is going to be spent in the ETL process, unless you go to a company where the system is already in place. You guys are dealing with legacy data. You're not seeing a lot of change, which doesn't really happen that often. Technology is always changing. We're always having new ways to receive data. But hey, I'll just say, in my experience being in the industry for over a decade, when I was in that role, I spent the majority of my time in the ETL process. So what does that look like? All right. Let's have a few different views. And like I said, like in this course, you guys are gonna get hands-on experience, like jumping straight into what you would really be doing on the job. And this would probably be something that you're gonna get thrown into on your first day. All right. So just a recap, essentially, we're trying to, on the data side of things, allow for this app to have this capability. It needs to take some input data, transform the data, and put it into this format that has the participant classifications, and then take some funding information, some funding opportunities. Also, classify it in some way, and then be able to create queries that easily match these two things up. All right. That's what our goal is. Our goal is to deliver a database design that will allow for that functionality. So let's go into how we would start this, right? So the first part of this is ingesting the user data. So you guys will notice down here on data mapping, we have three different sources. In the real world, you could have a lot more data sources. I've gotten all sorts of data. And I can tell you right now, 90% of the time, your data is going to be dirty. In this scenario, we're starting from ground zero, so the data isn't dirty. But I'll tell you right now, 90% of your time is going to be cleaning and reformatting the data so that you can ingest it into your database. So in our scenario, we're only going to be using three data sources. So the first data source is the email that we receive from our client. The second data source are going to be the documents within that email. And the third data source is going to be our Google form. I'm actually going to start with the Google form first, because the Google form is like where the majority of our database or our information is stored. And it's very similar to our actual database design. So I'll go over the database design as we work our way through our KPI views. So let me show you guys the Google form. Okay, so the part that I'm about to go over now, as far as doing data mapping, I can't like tell you guys how, quote unquote, to do it. This has just come from like being in the industry for over a decade and doing this over and over and over and over again, to like, I can tell you at a high level what I'm doing. It's trying to take real life objects and like represent them in a database, in a, I guess, structural way. It's just like second nature to me at this point. It'll come to you guys like, but your DBA would have already like had this mapped out for you. If you're a data analyst, you will not be doing this. You will not be responsible for creating the database design. Your job is going to be like transforming the data that you receive and getting it to fit into the database. So you would not really be doing this. The data scientists, you should know how to do this, but you're past the point where you would be doing this. This data should be cleaned and reported to you. You be involved when we actually start doing the study, but like you would not be responsible for this. So this is very data analyst, business intelligence developer type of role right here. But all right, let's jump into this. All right, so this is the Google form. And what I basically did was once I kind of thought through the structure of the database, hold on, let me see if I can show you guys where in the wireframe. Let me show this. Let's go to our wireframe. Okay, so here are all the different tables. Like I said, I pretty much just thought through what the app needs and was kind of able to more or less like kind of figure out the structure of the database. Especially because I had a real client who, yeah, so that was very helpful. I had a real use case. So anywho, these are all the different tables that will end up using in order to make our app work. This is our SQL. We're also going to have a NoSQL database. And right now, we're just going to use a JSON file to represent that. In the future, it's going to be a Mongo database. And if we put it in a cloud, I think Cassandra, is Cassandra the cloud NoSQL, I believe. Is Mongo in the cloud? I'm not sure. Either way, we'll find some type of cloud solution. But for now, our NoSQL is just going to be in a JSON file. And our SQL is going to be in this SQLite. But before that, we're going to put it in a Google Colab notebook just to like figure out the structure of the database. And if I were really developing this, which I probably am, the in-between would be a SQLite database, and then it would probably be this MySQL database. SQLite is really good for when you're still figuring out the structure of your database. So not gonna go into the weeds off dot. Okay, so let's get back grounded in this project. So let's take a step back and remind ourselves what we're trying to accomplish. All right. So let's go back to the forest before we get into the trees. So what we're trying to accomplish, let's start with our dashboard views. And I'll say this as a senior developer, you want to, as quickly as possible, be able to deliver value to stakeholders to get them to rally behind bringing this new product to market. The worst that could happen, this happened to me oh my gosh, this happened to me on the job where if you guys spend too much time in the wrangling phase and you're not able to demonstrate the value that your project brings, I can almost guarantee your project's going to get shut down. It happened to us. So you want to start off with like an MVP, a minimal viable product. So something that off jump we can deliver to our client and that's valuable. So in this case, we're going to start with our dashboards. This will be a way for our client to be able to easily communicate business intelligence that's going on with their funding, the funding performance. So us being able to deliver just like a dashboard that can basically save them time, increase their efficiency, et cetera, will be very helpful for them. All right. So that's how we're going to start this project. And so let's walk through this. All right. We've already designed out. So assume that the UX team and the data team have already worked together to design out this wireframe. And again, guys, the very first thing you want to do is always wireframe. You don't want to start off gate just coding. Make sure you take the time to like figure out like what story you're trying to tell, what objects are going to be used on the dashboards, what formulas. That's honestly where we're going to spend most of our time in the data mapping, like figuring out which tables we're going to use, and then like how are we going to aggregate that data. All right. So I'm going to record like a video for each one of the dashboards. So this first one is going to be going over the funding goal performance dashboard. All right. So what I'm going to do in the next video is actually go through each object. I don't know about this filter. That might be doing the most. I might put that in a bonus. Yeah, that's going to be in the bonus. We're just going to go over the cards and the graphs. So we're going to go over each one of these. We're going to define what it means. We're going to define which tables it's stored. And then we're going to create the queries that would build the database or build the tables that we need, and then also query the database to get this information. In a future video, we'll actually plug this up to a presentation layer. But the very first step that you want to do, because this is something you could deliver to your clients off gate, you could have a report that just gives them the information. And like you could even off gate, if you wanted it to be like, your just most simple version, this could easily be plugged up to like, a Google Sheets or Excel, etc., because you actually have the data reporting. But either way, I'm going to end this video here. And then in the next video, I will go through the first dashboard and we'll work our way through like going through the database design and creating the queries. All right, guys. So yeah, make sure you guys, like if you guys want to see the full length of this entire tutorial, all you guys have to do is to enroll in our data science bootcamp. Classes start on June 1st. It is only $2.99 per month for the first 45 students to sign up. And this is what we'll be building in the course. So this is a preview of the full course. And if you want to enroll, the information is going to be in the description. All right. Peace.